So, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of POV Stories with Patty. So, for this month, we're celebrating Women's Month. And what fitting way to celebrate this special month than with my good friend from the beautiful islands of Hawaii, Arianna Graham. So, welcome, Arianna, to the show. Today, we are going to talk about a very special topic, which is women struggling with polycystic ovary syndrome or PCOS. So Ariana and I met in 2013 because we were in the same ward. I'm not really sure if it's Laie married third ward. Is that correct? I'm not sure.
I don't remember which one. There's so many, but we were in TVA together.
I was
Yes, same word.
actually trying to remember if we were living in the same building. Were we living in the same building?
I I don't remember.
We were in Q 205.
Oh, we were in M building, so we were across.
Okay, across. So Ariana and I met at church because we were in the same ward. And the reason why we connected, my friend Jessica, she was trying to comfort me because just like Ariana, I'm also suffering with PCOS. And she told me that why don't you message Ariana and talk to her, maybe she can help you understand. And that's how we started messaging, and I'm so glad that we have stayed connected. Really grateful for
Yeah,
that, Ariana. So I
yeah,
do have a few questions, but first,
okay.
I haven't really studied about the PCOS and all, but I know that women who are suffering with PCOS usually overproduce androgens, which is a
Mhm.
hormone that is dominant for male. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's why women suffering with PCOS um, are having a hard time, conceiving a child because mainly their ovaries are not producing the right size of eggs for them to conceive a baby because of the hormonal imbalance caused by it. So
Mhm.
I'd like to ask, like, when did you find out that you were suffering from PCOS?
Okay, so my husband and I got married in June of 2011, and I just went on birth control because we still had 2 or 3 years left of school, and I had no reason to suspect that I would have a hard time getting pregnant because I am one of 11 children. My mom had 11 of us, so I just figured I'll probably just as fertile as she is. But after about a year of being on birth control, I started feeling like we should have a baby earlier than planned. And so my husband agreed, and I stopped the birth control. And then I thought I would get pregnant like the first month. I was so naive. I didn't I didn't really know. I was just like, if I'm not on birth control, I'll get pregnant. Little did I know it's not that simple. So 3 whole months went by since I stopped the birth control, and I was getting negative pregnancy tests repeatedly, and I also was not getting a period. I didn't have any period at all. And so I finally made a doctor's appointment, and he did an ultrasound, the OB, and he showed me on the ultrasound how there were all of these, it looked like pearls, a string of pearls on my ovaries. And he told me that's like the classic indicator of polycystic ovary syndrome. And I was like, what the heck is that? I had never heard of it before. And he diagnosed me that day. This was in 2012, so about a year after getting married. Um, and I just went home with so many questions, and I was devastated. I thought, because the word syndrome, it just sounds so devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I started researching what it was, and he said treatment is to go on birth control. I was like, but I'm trying to have a baby. And so I did my own research, and it was around that time when I finally decided to, kind of make it public what I was struggling with. And that's when I wrote my first blog post. And I think that's how Jessica had the idea for you to reach out to me was I just had this one night of I was sick of, you know, struggling alone because I had never heard of it before, because women tend to just be like keep it to themselves because it's such a silent struggle. And the hard part about it is like you can't see it. Like if someone breaks their arm, you can obviously see the pain they're in and see that they're trying to heal from something. But with this was like so internal and so personal. I just felt like I needed to open up about it so that I could be connected with women who could, you know, maybe strengthen me or just like create a community of women who talked about it. And so I'm really glad I did that. So I was diagnosed in 2012.
Yeah, I was diagnosed 2011, 6 months before I got married. So it was kind of really devastating, just like you said, because well, we weren't really planning on having kids early on, at the marriage stage, but it's really devastating because with you, you have a big family, but with my
Mm-hmm.
family, I was the only girl, and it was really hard because I didn't know what to do, and my mom, she she really gets pregnant easily. She's so fertile. So it was really frustrating to know, and I understand where you're coming from, that women who are suffering with PCOS tend to suffer in silence, which is really not good. But I know that you've been through a lot of medical procedures or medical help. When did you know that it was time to stop and just take things or take matters into your own hand?
Okay. So I just want to say that the biggest thing that I have learned over the years of this struggle and this process was I needed to advocate for myself, because I went through, I want to say, 3 or 4 OBGYN doctors. And each time I just felt like I was pushed through the system. They said, oh, you have polycystic ovarian syndrome. Here's some Clomid. And I did 8 rounds of Clomid before I got pregnant with my first son. And I didn't even ovulate on it. It just, in fact, it overstimulated my ovaries. And I had a couple of ER visits because it ruptured and I was just in debilitating pain. But, anyways, after I went through so many doctors and so many rounds of the same thing and it wasn't working, it was like the definition of insanity, doing the same thing, hoping for new results, but getting the same result every time. And I felt like they were just treating a symptom. They were just using a band-aid solution and not really looking into what was the underlying factors that was causing all of this. And so I did more research, and I started looking into Eastern medicine instead of going to the Western way, which is, the medical world, the doctors. Because after I wrote my blog post, I had a couple of friends reach out to me, and one person suggested an acupuncturist. So I saw the acupuncturist, and she was more focused on addressing the underlying problems. She said, oh, you have an imbalance of this and this and this. We're going to do these things to address it. And I was like, okay, great. So I got acupuncture for a couple of months, and I was also taking a ton of different Chinese herbal supplements, which tasted gross, but it looked like I was drinking mud water every time. But because it was powders you put into your water. But anyways, I did that for a couple of months, and I completely stopped seeing my OB, and I stopped all pills because I was over it. I was over just taking pills. And I also did 2 rounds of IUI, which is intrauterine insemination. Both times I did not get pregnant, even though I ovulated. Um, and so after the second time when it didn't work, I just needed an emotional break, because you get your hopes so high up and you just have so much trust in science. And I felt like it failed me. I thought it was going to be a guaranteed
Yeah.
thing. And so when it didn't work, I was just emotionally done. My period started. I stayed home all day and I just cried and cried. And so I told my husband, I think we need a break. I think we need to just relax. And so that's what we did. I didn't track my cycle at all the following month. I just focused on other things in life, and I naturally, spontaneously got pregnant.
Yeah, I remember you messaging me, and you were really careful. But I really loved it when you messaged me, because we both know like the
Yeah.
struggle we both are going through,
Mm-hmm.
during that time. So it was really such a wonderful surprise to know that you naturally got pregnant. And I totally agree with you that, well, I did started trying to conceive a baby when I was still in Hawaii. So, I was also told to do Clomid, and I only did 3 rounds with metformin. And then
Mm-hmm.
on the third round, the doctor just said, you're going to have a hard time getting pregnant, and I don't think you're going to get pregnant. So imagine like how frustrating.
Terrible thing to say.
I know. And he was just looking at my body build and all of that, and said, I don't think you're going to get pregnant. So you have to do other things like exercise, eat the right food, or but mainly he said because my body doesn't look like it could carry or it could sustain a baby. So I said, okay. That was frustrating. So I had to look for another, doctor. And I'm not sure if you've heard of Dr. Fratinelli.
Oh,
Fratinelli.
yes. Yeah. The
Yeah.
Fertility Institute
Yeah. Yeah.
of Hawaii. Yeah.
So I went there because I was already I was so engrossed in that idea that I want to have the baby, because when you live in TVA, okay, so Ari and I used to live in the married dormitory, and hear babies crying, and hear, and you see,
Everyone's pregnant.
yeah,
Everyone around you is
yeah,
pregnant.
everyone was just like announcing I'm having a baby. So, and you suddenly think that, okay, I want to do it as well. So I remember that um because Dr. Fratinelli has a lot of clients. I remember waking up at 5 a.m. to catch the bus at 6 a.m. so I could go to the other side of the island, because we're
Yeah.
in the North Shore and I have to go east. So I just remember thinking, I hope that this works. And similarly, I did have a surgery to make sure that everything is okay. I did do IUI and all. But at the end of that session, and we were about to go home to the Philippines, Dr. Fettinel said, I think the best thing to do right now is to do IVF. And I knew that I wasn't emotionally ready for it. So
Much
I
more
just,
invasive.
yeah. So because with all the injections that you need to take,
Yeah.
all the medications, I was already scared because the medications really did do something bad for my liver during the time.
Yeah.
So I told my husband that I needed to do a break,
Yeah.
an emotional break, because it's really hard, and it's really
It's a roller
physically
coaster.
exhausting.
Yeah.
So the medications are too much for my
Mhm.
little body to
Mhm.
carry during the time. So I told my husband, okay, it's time to take a break.
Mhm.
But I suffered really in silence, because I didn't really want to talk about it. I don't like telling people that I just don't have the ability to do it. It's insulting,
Yeah.
you know, um, in more ways than one. So sometimes when people at church or at work ask me, when are you
They
gonna have a
make
baby?
comments. Yeah.
Right? My usual excuse is that I don't think I want to have a baby. It's like it's like the opposite of what I'm trying to do. And I think
Yeah.
I just got tired explaining things that was the automatic response.
Yeah. Yeah. So I noticed a lot of women will come up with the one thing that they just always say so that people stop asking them about it because they try to make comments and some of them have good intentions, but it just comes off so insulting and painful. And
So I tried to just do the automatic response. We're not gonna have a baby right now,
Mhm.
but we're already on our 8th year. That's why people are starting, to think. The longer
Mhm.
you're married, the longer people are trying to suspect it when you're
Yeah.
going to have a baby. But I'd like to ask, like, um, when you found out that you were pregnant, how did it change everything for you?
It's kind of funny, the story of how I found out, because I started feeling symptoms, but I just would brush it off and brush it off. So I didn't know I was pregnant until I was like 7 or 8 weeks along, because I was just telling myself, oh, it's another late period. Oh, because I've never had regular periods in my entire life until now. But so I remember I woke up one morning at 4 in the morning to use the bathroom. And the night before, my husband said, well, why don't you just put out a pregnancy test? Just take it in the morning, just, to put your mind at ease. And in my head, I was like, okay, I'm only going to take it to prove to you that I'm not pregnant. So I put it out the night before, and then I wear contacts and glasses. So if I'm not wearing either of those, I can't see anything. So I just stumbled to the bathroom and I was like, oh, the test. And I took the test, and it turned positive immediately. And I thought I was imagining things. So I like had to hold it up really close to my face because I can't see. um and I just like I couldn't breathe because it first of all, it's 4 in the morning, so it felt like I was still sleeping. And I just like started hyperventilating and crying. And I was like, I can't believe this is real. So I went and washed my hands and everything. And then I just like went in back into my room and I like yelled at my husband who was still sleeping. I was like, I'm pregnant. And he like got really scared. He thought like something bad was happening, like we were getting robbed. And he just like jumped up. He was like, what's going on? I was like, I'm pregnant. And he was like, no, you're not. That was his response. Because it had been almost 4.5 years by this point of trying, and just so many negative pregnancy tests that he got himself to the point where he just believed it would never happen. And so when I told him I was pregnant, that was the first response that came out of his mouth. And then even though I took a couple more tests that day to prove to him, he still was scared to believe it. It wasn't until we went to our first ultrasound and heard the baby's heartbeat, that's when he finally like was like, oh my gosh, this is real. Because you could see the little gummy bear of a baby moving on
Oh.
the screen. Um, so after that happened, I I went from, because before I found out I was pregnant, I used to have this narrative in my head about my body. Like I would tell myself, my body can't do what it was designed to do. I'm a woman, and how can I be a woman if I can't bear children? All these lies in my head that I would tell myself. Because I attached the value of who I was to my ability to bear children, and that's so wrong. But mentally, that's where I was. And so after I got pregnant, I had to switch to being like, well, this pregnancy happened naturally without the assistance of doctors. And so it was like a reminder from God that I should trust in his designs and his timing, and but also to have more respect and love for my body, regardless if I was pregnant or not. And that was something that I had to learn for myself. So that's a big change that I went through after finding out I was pregnant. And then, especially after having two more pregnancies after that, all natural. And getting to this point, it wasn't anything that I did or a doctor did, because this is my third natural pregnancy. And I just I always ask my husband, do you think if I had known that I would end up with 3 kids, that I would have cried so many nights? Or like, would I have done anything differently? And his response was, he thinks that we needed to struggle that it did make a difference, that all the things that the efforts we made in order to have children, it did impact where we are today. So like if I had given up, then maybe we wouldn't be at this point. I have a friend who she has endometriosis and PCOS, and she has had two children and then adopted two. But I remember a conversation I had with her one day, and she said, you know, nobody on this earth is going to fight harder than you will to bring your babies to earth. So no doctors, no friends, no well-meaning family members. It's going to be you. And so after she told me that, it just like changed my whole attitude. And that was before I conceived my first baby. So that's the story. Sorry, that's the story of my first pregnancy.
Oh, I really like what you shared, that, hearing, I'm sure that during the time, hearing that nobody's going to fight for your baby, not the doctors, but it's you who's going to fight really hard, to bring them here on earth. And that's the thing with women, struggling with PCOS, is that sometimes we just focus on our feelings, our emotions, our mental stress, and that's okay to focus. But it also you know gets us away from the goal, which is to have a baby. And I cannot count the number of nights and days that I used to cry.
Yeah.
And it's really dreadful, because when you see baby announcements, you
Yeah.
just can't help but
Mother's
think
Day.
that my inability to have children is defining who I am, my ability as an overall human being. And I like what you shared, that it's not about that. It's
Mm-hmm.
about knowing who you are and trusting God's will, and also taking care of your body. It's your job to take care of it. And that's an eye opener, for a lot of women struggling to get pregnant with PCOS, or just even to heal or to manage, the
Yeah,
symptoms.
just to manage it, just to like for me, if I had two menstrual cycles in a row where it was around the same amount of days, I thought that was a victory, because I used to go like 3 months with no period and then 2 months with no period. It was all over the place. So just getting my body to menstruate regularly was a huge feat and victory when it happened. And I actually didn't do anything to make it happen. It's just the more babies I had, the more my body was healing itself. It was really interesting, because before I got pregnant with this third baby, it was the first time in my entire life that I had 5 months in a row of a regular period in my whole life. And I'm 30. Oh no, I'm 31. So
Pregnancy
yeah,
hormones.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I've heard a lot of stories from other women who also got pregnant from PCOS, that when you get pregnant, you'll just see how your body heals itself, or on its own. And
Mhm.
that's a miracle. And like what you've said, just managing the symptoms, just getting, your period every month is a win. And you
Mhm.
always have to celebrate our wins. I remember when we started the pandemic, I didn't have my period for the previous 6 months. So when I got my period for 2020, I was jumping for joy. And I
Mhm.
called my friends, I called my cousin's wife. I told her I have my period, because it's something that doesn't happen regularly, and it's something that to be celebrated. It's hard, and just getting that means that you've already did something, to manage it. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing that. I really was really touched by what you shared, and it did help me with my perspective right now. How did this struggle, help you become the woman you are today, or the mom and the wife that you are today?
Well, definitely. So when I was struggling to have kids and I had none, I would always look at other women who were complaining about motherhood, and I'd be like, I would give anything to be in your shoes, or I would give anything to have that morning sickness, and because it meant that I would have a baby. And so now being on the other side of things and having experienced those things, I am so grateful that I struggled so much to conceive my children, because the days are hard. Motherhood is a beautiful thing. And but there are such things as like postpartum depression, and just like feeling like you lose your identity once you become a mother, because when they're so young and so needy, all you're doing every second of the day is taking care of them, like changing diapers and breastfeeding and just like sacrificing so much. So I think if I hadn't gone through what I did, I wouldn't appreciate the hard days. I think I would take it for granted a lot more. I think I would be a lot less patient with my kids, because I have a 4-year-old and he tests my patience a lot. And then I have a 1.5 month, or sorry, he's 18 months, so a year and a half. So he's just starting to get into all kinds of trouble, excuse me, and just giving me like gray hairs. So it makes the hardships more beautiful and more meaningful, knowing where I used to be. But I also have a lot of survivor's guilt, because I know so many women that when I first opened up about infertility, they're still struggling, or I don't know, whatever happened with their journey. Everyone's story is so different. For me, it took me 4.5 years. It might take someone 10, 15 years. I even know of a couple who, after 20 years of marriage, they had a surprise pregnancy. And so I'll have a little bit of survivor's guilt, and I'll think that that girl or that woman is so deserving of the blessing that she wants. So why was I given this blessing now and she's still waiting? Or it helps me to be a lot more empathetic and to really think about what everyone is going through, even if we can't see it on the outside. And so that's why I still talk about infertility, like on social media. I think September is PCOS Awareness Month. So every year I still try to make a post about it and share my experiences, because nowadays all I post about is my kids. But it's like, remember where you came from. I try to always remember where I came from. But it was a blessing to be able to have to struggle, because I learned and grew so much. I'm grateful for that time I had.
Thank you so much, Ari. I really appreciate what you just shared about how it made you, a better woman, a better friend, a better mom, a better wife. So if there's any message you can give, I know that we all have differences when it comes to struggling with PCOS. What is your message to all the women who are trying to conceive? So what's your message for them?
I think I would say, don't compare yourself, because your story is your own and that other girl's story is her own. And we don't always know every single part of the story just by looking at other people. And so it can be easy to think, well, why did that person get that and I didn't? Or, you know what I mean? And I know that comparison, there was a quote I heard that says comparison will either make you vain or jealous, but either way, it's not good.
Yeah.
So I think that would be my advice, is just to not compare yourself. So we may be diagnosed with the same thing, but we experience different symptoms of it. Or I remember my husband's cousin, she was also diagnosed with it. And I was still trying for my first, and she got pregnant in the first month of trying for her baby. And I compared myself to that, and I told my husband, and I cried to him, and I said, I've been struggling for 2 years now, and we have the same diagnosis, but she got pregnant right away. Why? And it wasn't healthy for me to do that. And so I think just like, yeah, don't compare your story to someone else's, because we're all we all have a mortal journey to walk, and it's going to look different for everyone. So I think just to appreciate the obstacles that we have to work on and to appreciate the blessings that come to us, because we're all blessed in different ways. We all struggle in different ways, and comparison doesn't help.
Yeah. Thank
So,
you.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Ari. Something that helped me to manage how I'm feeling is to just stop reading, to reading blogs. I try to not look at other people's story and start comparing myself to them. And something that I've also realized is that my inability right now to get pregnant or to conceive does not make me less of a woman that I am today.
I totally believe that motherhood is not the defining trait of womanhood. I think it's the other way around. So, womanhood defines motherhood. And I think we're all mothers before we actually conceive our first child. So, I already consider you to be a mother. So,
Yeah.
and I want to add on to my other advice I had earlier: surround yourself with wonderful, positive, uplifting people, especially women. So, this is an example of it. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. I'm so glad we've been in touch over the last how many years? 8 years?
8 years, yeah, eight
Yeah.
years. I love it when you greet me, Happy Mother's Day. Jessica has always been greeting me Mother's Day, during Mother's Day, and other people would say like Happy Mother's Day, although they fear of messaging me that. But I find
Mm-hmm.
it really beautiful that people look at me as a mother, even if I still don't have a baby, but that's something I'm also looking forward to. The woman that I will be if I get pregnant. And I'm hoping the same, not just for me, but for all the women out there who are struggling with infertility. So thank you so much, Ari, for
Thank
joining me
you for
today.
having
I'm
me.
so
Thank
happy to be
you.
able to talk to you and to know your story about how you overcame this challenge. Thank you so much, Ari. And thank you for all those who watch POV Stories with Patty. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.
Thank you.